Xiaomi continues their tradition of mid-cycle releases with a phone that also continues their partnership with Leica, so you know we're going to be looking at a lot of pictures and videos in this one. Let me know your thoughts on the camera samples, because not only did I bring this phone with me to Xiaomi's launch event in Munich, Germany here, but it also supported me during a situation where you want some good zooms, a K-pop concert. But there is plenty more to enjoy in this latest variant on the already impressive Xiaomi 15 series, so let's dive in. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This here is the Xiaomi 15T Pro in this week 1. Yeah, we're here with another T variant, which tends to come in the mid-cycle of Xiaomi's mainline releases, and often plays a bit of a balancing act with key upgrades and affordability. One thing is basically a given with any major Xiaomi release, however, and it's that this Leica designation over the camera optics will be there. The thing is, T this year clearly stands for telephoto, at least with the Pro variant here, because one of the aforementioned key upgrades is a 5x Pro telephoto, which is a 50 megapixel zoom shooter engineered with Leica to support the 50 megapixel main sensor and the 12 megapixel ultra-wide. Yeah, I'm diving straight into the cameras to start this video off because it was one of the first things I put to the test, and it was in a scenario that I think is pretty practical, and that would be concert going. Now, if you don't already know, the K-pop community is often looking for phones that will support their creation of things called fan cams during concerts. And fan cams were certainly a thing at this Le Sserafim show that I was able to attend with my girlfriend in LA. I'll give my thoughts on the results a little bit later in the video, but for now, here's a look at what I was able to capture for a taste of something different on what was a perfect night. Fellow Fear Nuts know what I'm talking about. But the journey of this week 1 would eventually lead me to the actual travel to the announcement event in Munich after some days of using the phone on the daily. While I'm heading out on that big flight to Germany, let's talk a little bit more about the phone at large. Xiaomi's no stranger to stylish design choices, but in this phone we're not seeing anything too radical happen in the hardware. The usual stovetop camera area is nestled in the corner of what is a rather wide phone that might make one-handed usage a little bit harder for some. The resulting benefit is a large 6.83-inch AMOLED display though, with very respectable minimal bezel all around. Surrounding all of this is an IP68 water and dust resistance rated body, including a glass fiber backing and an aluminum alloy frame in this special mocha gold colorway that does give it quite the nice look. It's in fact almost a shame that the case that is included with the phone, itself a nice accessory to see in the box, it actually covers up this mocha gold in a lot of gray. So, like I said, not many radical changes in the T variant on the outside, but that does make this a rather approachable smartphone. Part of that approachability is supported by proper daily performance, and this time it is powered by the Dimensity 9400 Plus, which is a high-tier SoC from MediaTek that has thus far been able to keep up with all of my general usage. It is certainly able to keep up with the shutterbug in me, as you kind of saw already earlier with the K-pop concert photos and videos, and that is usually one of the main scenarios where I see some slowdown under constant camera usage. But the phone was able to keep up with me hitting that shutter button very rapidly, trying to get just a good shot at zoom ranges of over 50 times. But beyond that more power user case, the phone has made my daily browsing or doom scrolling nice and easy, even with YouTube constantly playing in the background. Gaming has also been just fine on here, with Destiny Rising being my go-to these days for some game testing, even though it just tops out at 60 FPS for the moment still. That said, the display on here does support up to 144Hz refresh rate. Xiaomi is pushing a couple of new usability points with the 15T Pro that admittedly haven't gotten a ton of use on my daily usage of the phone, like offline communication between Xiaomi smartphones. Basically, this new T series of phones that includes the base model 15T, they'll all be able to do direct device-to-device voice communication within a certain range of distance without the need of cellular networks or Wi-Fi. And that's something that would come in handy when, let's say, all else fails, like perhaps during camping or hiking outdoor scenarios. And apparently this feature is coming for the first time on the global editions of the phones, which of course are being announced here in Munich. There is of course the AI of it all still, and Xiaomi makes the 15T Pro a proper conduit for Google's AI offerings like Assistant and Gemini, alongside their own software additions like Hyper AI, which helps support the performance of the phone in general after a bunch of usage. And all of this is in the HyperOS 3 software, which should be pretty familiar to anyone that has used recent generation Xiaomi smartphones. Now, I am using an eSIM on my Xiaomi 15T Pro, but there is a SIM tray here. These days, I feel like it's something I do have to specify. Speaking of that bottom portion of the phone, the USB-C port does support Xiaomi's super fast 90-watt hypercharge, but this time a charger was not included in the box. I will call that a bit of a bummer, especially since I didn't have any time to dig through my large stash of power bricks to find a previous hypercharge adapter. Hypercharged wireless charging at 50 watts is also here, but for now I'm just plugging in with my usual travel kit, and it does include this slower wireless charger compared to the Hypercharge. There's no reason to believe that the Xiaomi 15T Pro will perform any less than needed for most people. And it will perform well for a long time, it seems, since that 5500 mAh battery has been able to withstand that heavy camera usage day that I talked about, which included the touristy day here in Munich. Besides, on top of all of that, you get Xiaomi's experienced take on a smartphone camera, complete with their partnership with Leica. Xiaomi fans will know what to expect here, with quite a few places bearing the Leica name in terms of the hardware and certain software bits like filters and color modes. Historically, the result has usually been impressive photos and videos from a robust camera package, and the 15T Pro continues that. Let's get a couple of other things out of the way first though. The front-facing camera is a 32 megapixel shooter that provides a pretty wide angle of view, approximately 21 millimeters worth, which is quite great for group selfies and the more typical vlogging videos. All that said, I do tend to turn the phone around and vlog with the 12 megapixel ultra-wide for an even better look at my surroundings and an overall more dramatic look.
All right, welcome to Munich, where the launch of this phone is happening, and apparently we're going on a bit of a sightseeing tour in a pretty unique bus. It may not be fully open air, but it is apparently vintage, and I'm inclined to agree.
The ultra-wide is still a reliable shooter when you want to fit more into the frame, but it's with the main sensor and now the telephoto that you're getting real extra support in the 15T Pro. The main sensor provides reliable results with good shallow depth of field in both photos and videos, and it is the sensor that will get cropped into to achieve medium focal length portraits before moving over to the proper periscope lens. 4K 120 frames per second video capture is possible on this phone as well, but that is locked to the main sensor. That and log profile shooting were actually my go-tos for some cool shots during a brewery tour right in the middle of Munich's Oktoberfest season. It's kind of crazy that we get to actually experience a bit of Oktoberfest in Germany. Also, one cool thing about the Xiaomi log recording is that the Panasonic LUT that I have used before works quite well to add everything back to the flat footage. It's probably a coincidence, but let's just say Panasonic does partner with Leica from time to time as well, so it kind of makes sense to me. But portraits is one of the places where Xiaomi phones tend to impress, and with a proper 5x telephoto, the Xiaomi 15T Pro continues that. Going all the way to 5x with the telephoto lens in portrait mode might not be a super common occurrence, but whenever you get the chance to, maybe make sure there's a bit of foreground to really create that separation. Xiaomi and Leica tuned the telephoto to have its own good shallow depth of field, which then gets helped by the software processing to really make portraits look dramatic. That artificial bokeh can be dialed in though. The telephoto can also get pretty close into objects, not quite on the level of like a macro or maybe a floating telephoto lens like we've seen from Xiaomi before, but still, it's pretty usable nonetheless. Which brings me back to other types of zooms and thus back to the Le Sserafim concert. I made sure to bring the Xiaomi 15T Pro with me at that concert where my girlfriend and I sat, or mostly stood, in the 300 section, meaning the action was quite far away. And I'm glad I had the telephoto on hand for that distance. Xiaomi touts that the zooms on the 15T Pro will look especially great up to 10 times, which is itself already an equivalent of 230 millimeters, and that cleared a ton of distance from our seats. But going up to around 30 with the camera made for halfway decent results. Now, mind you, I may not necessarily use these for like social media, and I certainly wouldn't try to make like a poster out of these shots, but I still have the memory, and that counts for something. Going beyond 20x on the camera turns on Xiaomi's Ultra Zoom 2.0, which is their way of saying heavier post-processing. While going 100 times was fun to try out, the results usually ended up with all of the over-sharpening and over-smoothening from the massive noise reduction applied to the image, ultimately creating what I usually call the watercolor effect. Also, trying to keep things steady at that 100 times is certainly doable, but it's not super easy. The fact that 100 times is even something that I can use is always worth noting, but I also don't think most people would ever really want to go beyond 20 times anyway. And yet, good zoom results at 20 times is still also very impressive. Imagine if I were able to sit in the 100 section or even on the floor, what a max 20 times in photos and maybe a max of 10 times in video would have achieved. I could make a whole different social media profile just with great fan cams from any concert I attend. And so, there you have it. My experience so far with the Xiaomi 15T Pro in this week 1. The T-Series always shows how Xiaomi learns year after year how to balance powerful features and accessibility, and while the Pro model will obviously have a few more bells and whistles simply to match the Pro user, it's still a compelling package among competitors that claim to be top-tier smartphones but might not be exceptional in certain places like battery life and camera. And yet, a fast-charging, far-zooming, colorfully capturing, long-lasting offering like this shows how Xiaomi works hard to dot the I's and cross the T's. Let me know any thoughts you have on the Xiaomi 15T Pro by hitting that like button and sounding off in the comments. Consider subscribing so that you know when more videos like this come out. After all, this is not the only product that Xiaomi was announcing here in Munich. But from there, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for kicking it with me again today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.